Hello and welcome to our week 9 recap of this edition of ATV. I'm jumping ahead of myself because there is so much to get into here. A couple things, and we are going to get rolling. This is that point. You got a week left in the season. Make a break for a couple teams. Can they get over that hump? Can they get into the playoffs? Can they solidify their spot? Can they make an argument for where they belong in these divisions? It is exciting, exciting, exciting. And we're going to bring it all to you. And joining me as always, like I might have forgotten to say, I'm Arshav Sarian. And joining me as always is Kenny Hodges. Kenny, how you doing?
Jack, excited, ready to go, ready to tear into football. We have had a crazy, incredible regular season. We are now looking at the finish line. We can see postseason around the corner. We got league titles wrapping up. We got teams stepping up and showing their mettle. We have statements being made. We have teams letting you know that they're not going to be easy outs when they get the postseason just based on how they're playing down the stretch. There is so much to get into. It is Halloween week. It is getting spooky out here. Got a little spooky in other places too. But we're going to get into all of that. But let's start with the week 9 scoreboard final. As always, we're going to start in the East Valley, looking at the scores there. Our leader went on the road to Fulton in the afternoon. Fulton it's been a season of rebuilding. They take another loss. They fall to 0-9. Our leader takes the win 47-zip behind Jose Rosa's 119 rush yards, 6 rushing touchdowns on the ground. Our leader improves to 5-1 in league, 6-3 overall. Over at Poly, it was a tight one, just like we predicted when we were looking at this game. 20-14, Poly win. The difference in the game being a Poly fumble recovery late in the second half, or early in the second half of a Verdugo going in for a score. That ends up being the difference in the game as Poly comes away with a 6-point win. George Flores with 176 pass yards, a touchdown, and 1 on the ground. Poly goes to 4-2 in league. Verdugo drops to 3-3 and 3-6 overall. Over at Chavez, North Hollywood continued to do what they've done to the East Valley for better part of 2 seasons now, and that is lay a hammer. And they did that to Chavez, 60-22 final score, 183 passing yards for Logan Grant, 2 TDs. NoHo Rushing continues to chew it up, 293 total yards and 6 rushing touchdowns in that one. Last but not least, in the East Valley, Grant hosted Monroe. 2 teams fighting to try to improve potential for the playoff positioning. Monroe comes away with the 29-13 victory on the road. They move to 2-4 in the East Valley, 4-5 overall. Grant falls to 1-5, 1-8 overall. Looking at the Valley Mission, over at Van Nuys, we told you this had game of the week potential. We told you the rivalry, the history, recent history with these 2 programs, and it was a nail biter that came down to a late passing touchdown by Carlos Herrera, and Van Nuys pulls out a 43-36 victory over Panorama. They wrap up their regular season 9-1 overall, 5-1 in the Valley Mission League. Panorama falls to 5-4, 2-3 in the Valley Mission. Over at Sylmar bounces back from the loss at the Coliseum with a resounding 42-0 victory over Reseda. They move to 2 and they get their second win in the Valley Mission. They're 5-4 overall. Reseda falls to 0-5, 0-9 overall, still looking for their first win of the season, heading into week 10. Last but not least, in the Valley Mission, a game that was a lot closer than many might have thought. Kennedy comes away with a close 21-12 victory over San Fernando. They stay unbeaten in the Valley Mission as they're closing in. They've clinched at least a share of the league title. They're closing in on another outright title as they move to 8-1 overall, 5-0 in the Valley Mission. San Fernando falls to 3-2 in the Valley Mission, but still 6-3 overall, nothing to sneeze at. Good effort by those 2 teams there. Over into the West Valley, looking at the scoreboard. We told you this one had a potential if Granada could execute the game plan to keep it close, and that they did. 23-16. They came up just a little bit short. Birmingham wins the game 23-16. Moved to 4-0. Clinching at least a share of the West Valley. No, as a matter of fact, no. They've already beaten up their competition. They've already clinched the West Valley outright, for the snafu. They're 4-0 in the league, 6-3 overall. Granada Hills falls to 2-2, 4-5 overall. Cleveland goes on the road to Taft. Taft continues to show that they are moving in an upward direction in that West Valley and in the city overall. They take the win 21-13, a close one over Cleveland. They move to 2-2 in the West Valley, 6-3 overall. Cleveland has been a tough year. They're 1-3, 2-7 overall, but we'll keep our eye on Cleveland because they'll still be dangerous when we get to postseason. And last but not least, in the West Valley, Elko hosting Chatsworth. 46-6 win for the Elko Royals. They continue to look stellar in the late part of the season. They moved to 3-1 in the West Valley, 5-4 overall. Chatsworth struggling this year. They're 0-4. They fall to 1-8 overall. So before we move on, let's get a look at the standings as they currently sit in the East Valley. North Hollywood is at 6-0. Arleta 5-1. Poly 4-2 behind them. Verdugo and Chavez sitting at 3-3 in the league. Monroe 2-4, Grant 1-5, and Fulton at 0-6. Over in the Valley Mission, Kennedy at 5-0. Van Nuys finishes at 5-1. They'll be on their bye next week, so they're done for the regular season. They're wrapped up their regular season. San Fernando at 3-2. Panorama and Silmar behind them at 2-3 in the league. Canoga Park at 1-4, and Reseda at 0-5. And over in the West Valley, Birmingham 4-0. As we've grown accustomed to, they're staying unbeaten in the West Valley. Elko right behind them, not too shabby. Their only loss being the Birmingham in the West Valley. They're 3-1. Granada Hills and Taft at 2-2. Cleveland at 1-3, and Chatsworth behind them at 0-4. Let's get back to talking about Week 9 because there was so much stuff going on in Week 9. Archivir, give me your takeaways because there were so many things that came out of this week as we head to postseason that are really intriguing. What stood out to you from the action across the valley?
Man, it was how tight everything is. And we say it, we talk about how close some of these programs are. And we talk all the time about, so-and-so better watch out. They better be on their best. They could get knocked off. And then it goes out and it happens. And we're like, yeah, it's tight. It really is so tight. That Verdugo Hills Poly game, turning on turnovers and the inability of Verdugo Hills to convert. That's just something that's plagued them for a while. If they convert, if they hold on to a football, if, and that's a different story. Hell of a tight battle. Kudos to both teams. Right? Birmingham, Granada Hills. Hell of a tight battle. Granada did what they were supposed to do to have a chance. Skin of their teeth, and yeah, Birmingham escaped with the win, and the one that was, we haven't been putting game of the week in the gems, but this was the game of the week. Van Nuys and Panorama. Van Nuys was down early. Panorama broke multiple big runs. We're talking 60+ yards. All of them went for scores. Van Nuys was behind the 8 ball. And they had to pull it out. Thankfully, they have a Carlos Herrera they can lean on to do that. He broke at least 80 yards. I've seen the video. I didn't really pinpoint where he was on the field when it happened. I was there as he broke it, but I had to leave because I had another commitment that I had to get to, and I could not be there. But I made a point I was going to be at that Van Nuys game for as long as I physically could. And I stood at that exit gate and I watched Herrera break that run. And I was like, there you go. This is the man they lean on. This is the young man that they need to get them where they want to go, and he's the reason they won. They put the ball in his hands and he made the game-winning play. But when you're up 2 scores and then you're down, it reinforces some of the things we talked about. Like, this is that game. You need to be on your best to come out of this game because Panorama is going to fight. They are going to grind. They are going to take it every step of the way. And kudos to those young men on the field for fighting through and finding a way and executing the game plan that was put in place to take that win. But yeah, my takeaway is that's just how tight everything is right now.
One of the things that just brings to light is where is your focus this time of year? Is it on the outside noise, or is it on what the prize is that's in front of you? Because at the end of the day, we're delivering information to the masses, but we're just telling you what we see, what we know, what we feel, what we studied, what we calculated. That's our job as journalists, right? Just to tell you what we see. But that doesn't necessarily define your value, right? Like I said, one of the things that was incredible, that we talked about, like I said, for Granada to win that game, hey, you got to limit their possessions. You got to convert first downs. You got to play tough nose. You're going to have to tackle somebody. Kevin Hawkins is the size of Thanos. Somebody got to decide, we don't care. We're not scared of him. I'm going to stick my nose in there, and you're not getting this first down. You got to get off the field. That's just the makeup of a football player at this time of year. I know what I need to do. I know what my job is. I know what the roles are. We know who we are now. Can we show that to other people? To me, I absolutely believe in the adage that you can learn more in losses than you do in your wins, right? Yeah, Granada Hills lost, but Granada Hills has to walk out of that game man, if we execute like that, yeah, Birmingham is one of the tippy top teams in the city. Man, if we execute like that in D1, who's stopping us? Who's stopping us? If it's 3rd and 3 and we can always move those chains, no one's going to beat us, right? Same thing. Let's look at that situation with Panorama and Van Nuys. Those are two teams that should come out of that game looking at themselves and saying, who's stopping us? That's what's it about this time of year. North Hollywood went into Chavez. Chavez was red hot. North Hollywood said, man, bump that. Let's see if you red hot when we running y'all ass over and down the field in the second half. That's what the good teams do at this time of year. They don't care what nobody else talking about. They're getting on the field and they making sure that they stuff is fine-tuned for the postseason. That was my takeaway in week 9. I looked around the valley. I looked at Taft, and Taft said, hey, guess what? Nathan Swinson is that boy too. And we could play a little bit on defense when we get our S together. And they go and put up a win. Elko has figured out that they like beating up on people. They like it. They actually really like beating that young man, that Borkic, their running back. Something wrong with him. And I mean that in the best way as a football player, because he ran a boy over against Birmingham, and you could tell that it did something to him. It was like he grew 3 inches in height after he did it. This is who they are. They've decided that, hey, Takia, the linebacker they got, that kid, all he want to do is hit people. Elko has figured something out. And maybe it's got something to do with that. They got Marvin Street running around there now, putting batteries in people back out there. But Elko figured out going at the right time this year that they ready to beat up everybody when they get in there. So that's what week 9 was to me. It was so cool seeing so many teams say, all right, we've spent the first 8 weeks figuring who we are. And now week 9, week 10, we ready to go chase some championships. Hey, man, I'm fired up. This has been a good week. Excuse me for bloviating a little bit. But, man, it's a lot going on. But before we get into the question of the week, we constantly just do drips and drabs where we talk about the flag football. We really are watching flag football. And we just want to kind of pontificate a little bit about where that season is. That season is also for the girls is entering into the last week of the regular season. And there's been a lot of things. There's a lot of good teams, a lot of interesting stuff going on. You got any takeaways of what's going on with flag right now as we get to the end of the regular season for the girls?
First and foremost, this flag season has been amazing. Just ridiculous, right? From, having girls that are leading the nation in stats, not number 1, but you pull up that national stat, And there she is, Vivier Andrade. Bam! You don't even have to click see more to see where she is. You pull up national, she's right there, number 3, right? So there's been so much excitement and growth in this. We have more than a quarter of the programs sitting in the playoffs if they started this week, right? And guess what? We've got at least one more that's sitting right on the cusp where if they have a really good week, we could see at least 12 teams in the flag division competing in the playoffs. And for a sport that is telling everybody, hey, we should have been legit years ago. These girls played. Mm-hmm. Now you're seeing these girls that grew up playing flag. Now they're getting in, and now they're showing everybody, hey, we know what to do. This isn't just a sport that was given to us. Let's give the girls something. No, this is something that should have started years ago. But that's it on that. My key is that there has been so much good football, so much good action, and before we dive a little more into it, you guys, I have a breakdown that's going to be ready to roll. It's going to be live Monday or Tuesday. It's setting up where all these girls are, all these teams are, and kind of what they need to do in the last week of the season to lock up a playoff spot or move up or down. So that's coming.
Yeah, for sure. And to me, just to rip off that just a little bit, like, yeah, we've talked all year about how good Panorama is. They're sitting number 4 in the city. Like, fully expect them to make a real deep championship run. But man, we have some teams that you look up and you're like, man, it's not just them. For instance, like Verdugo Hills, they already locked up the East Valley. They've they're number 11 in the city. I think they've won like 8 games in a row. They've won a win away from back-to-back undefeated seasons in the East Valley. This is a team, I don't know if they're going to get in open this year because, like I said, the top of girls flag is highly competitive, but they'll at bare minimum be one of the top seeds in D1 if they're not in open when all is said and done. Now, but that's a dangerous team. I would not be surprised if they're lifting hardware. Birmingham, like I said, that's a team that's just kind of slid under the radar. Because of, obviously Panorama's been such a feel-good story, but they're number 7 in the city, and they have a ridiculous 248 point differential this year in 12 games they've played. Like, this team, you're not going to want to see them in the postseason. That's a dangerous team. And then you look over at the Valley League. You got quality teams coming out of there. Like, it's so much fun, and that's not even talking about Sylmar and Cleveland and Elko being a defending champ. Like, we legitimately have some really top quality teams that we fully expect to be in position to lift some hardware, maybe playing each other to do it.
100%, and there's so much on that bone. Like I was saying, you've got teams like North Hollywood and San Fernando that are sitting on the cusp of, what division they're going to be in. Kennedy, Socius, they're having really good seasons, in their own right for fledgling type programs. And then, like, right on the cusp, literally just sitting right there. If Van Nuys can figure out a way to do something this week, those girls could see themselves in the playoffs. And can you imagine how exciting it's going to be? And because most of these programs are very fledgling, right? This is the 3rd year of flag, and some of them are in their 2nd year, some are in their 1st. It is exciting to watch this grow and watch it blow up. Because you think back the 1st year, right? We had a Valley Mission League, and it was Verdugo Hills and Sylmar, and it was kind of like a mishmash of what we kind of know, And now these other programs are coming in, and you have them taken into the more traditional type leagues, and it's so exciting to watch it and be like, hey, wait, don't forget about us. Yep. We got girls who want to play, and we're going to play. And then all you have to do is just look at these rankings and look at these schedules and look at what these teams have done. I love it. Honestly, I'm excited for how this week is going to break down. And, this article is going to be up real soon. If it's not up already by the time you guys are watching this, it's going to be up real soon. And then we're definitely going to do a bracket breakdown when this gets released next weekend.
Absolutely going to do a bracket breakdown because there's going to be so many teams that have a legitimate chance, and it's just going to be so interesting to see how it all falls when the postseason gets here. And speaking of one other team to mention when postseason gets here, our resident top dog in the city in 8-man, the Sochus Knights, currently sitting undefeated, a team that was so close to playing for the 8-man title last year. They've been a team on a mission all season long. We all know that the way that it sort of breaks down right now, it's kind of a two-team race between them and Animo Jackie Robinson. They're sort of the two the standard bearers on the 8-man scene. Just wanted to show a little love to Sochus. They're heading into their season finale this week, and they're going to probably be the top seed in the 8-man bracket, and they have a really good chance to come away with some hardware. And when this team has been really good for the last couple of seasons. So let's leave that conversation there. Let's go into the question of the week. There's a question every week after we go through the games, and I'm kind of sitting here and putting together the rundown. I try to look around. I look at rankings. I look at where teams sort of sit in standings. And there's two teams to me that when I keep looking at the rankings, just where even from week to week, win, losses, no matter what, these two teams seem to still be sitting in this general area in the rankings that leads me to believe that they could be on a collision course as early as maybe the first round in D2, the way things will probably break out. And that's North Hollywood out of the East Valley champs, and the Panorama Pythons in the Valley Mission. These two teams are kind of hovering in an area where I think realistically this could end up being a 3-14 matchup in the second round, or like a 5-12 matchup. Just like they're just sort of circling in these waters where you can tell that there is a good possibility these two teams could end up in places where they will see each other. So my question to you is, these are two teams that we know to be quality programs. We've seen what North Hollywood has done in recent years, sitting at the top of the East Valley, coming off of an East Valley League title, about to go back-to-back officially after this week. And then you have a Panorama team with all this pedigree, with all this, just the way that the grit and the sawdust that this program is built on. You see what they almost just did to Van Nuys this past week, letting you know that this is a dangerous team, as their name befits, right? So my question to you is, if these two teams were to meet in the D2 playoffs, which is a very real possibility, we could get that as a first round matchup. Who do you think would have the advantage when you look at where these two teams currently sit? Are you going to err on the side of Panorama's pedigree because we've seen them do it? We just saw them lift a title last year. Or are we going to look at this NoHo talent and look at it's been a multi-year process for Scott Fair and what he's building there, and it looks like a team that's ready to be a juggernaut in postseason. If you had to lean on one to have an advantage, who would you say?
Man, and I'm gonna use their mascots, kind of like you did, right? Because with the Huskies, they run by people like those wild dogs. They've got the speed. They've got the
and in a pack, because there's usually 8 or 9 guys that touch the football for them every week.
I mean, even in previous years when it wasn't 8 or 9, it was 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a pack. And and then with Panorama, yeah, that's what the Pythons do. They will suffocate you when they're on their game. This team is designed to fight in the trenches, drag you down and suffocate you, and then take the win. And so I completely hate having to make this decision. But I'm gonna go I'm gonna go with previous pedigree. I'm gonna go Panorama. You know, this is a team that has played in the championship game in, is it 3 out of 5 years or 3 out of 4 years?
Yeah.
You know, they get there. They get to that title game. They got over the hump last season. I'm taking them. You know, I think as a team that is designed to win the way they are, and with North Hollywood, if they were to match up in the playoffs, man, putting my feet to the fire, I'm taking Pana.
Yeah, I mean, and the reason why, obviously, a bit of a jerk on my part to even pose a question like this, because I know this is tough, but these are the debates that just are fun to have, because there really, to me, is no wrong answer here, especially when you look at the fact that North Hollywood and what Scott Fair has built there is something that I think in many respects can be self-sustaining as long as he has numbers in the program. That grit and that toughness and that fight that he's built into this program, that he's slow cooked into this program, that even a couple of years ago when they had a rash of injuries and it kind of fell apart on them, they came back even stronger the next season, and look what they ended up doing last year. And then this year, yeah, there were struggles out of the gate, but you could also see that he was trying to incorporate and trying to work in some new wrinkles outside of just their running game, which they have done this year, where they've shown that they can also take the top off the defense if you start to worry about that run game too much. That balance they've created. So there's a part of me that looks at, there's always has to be a jump off point, whether it be for a coach or a program, where you look at a point where you say, yeah, this is where they started to become good, and this is when they kind of took over and announced themselves as a team to be reckoned with. Kennedy had to fight through that with Panorama, then they got over the hump, and they haven't looked back. Panorama done the same thing where they were there, and then they finally found a way to kind of break through. I think this is North Hollywood's breakthrough moment. I think this could be, especially sitting in D2, I don't think there's anything that's going to be there that they can't handle. I don't think there's going to be anything there that they can't game plan. And yeah, it would suck to see Panorama in the first round. Boy, would that suck, because that's not who anybody wants to see in the first round based on what they've done the last 5 years post-COVID. But if there's any team that I think might be able to get it done, it might be these Huskies. So I, just for the sake of argument, I'll lean the other way. But there's no wrong answer here. I was just being a jerk even posing this question, because both of these teams are fully capable of hoisting the trophy when we get to the end of the season. So that will wrap up the week 9 portion. Let's look ahead to week 10. And you know what's always fun? When you can go into the last week of the season and there's still things for people to play for. There's still playoff positioning to play for. There's teams that can play their way into a bracket. There's teams that can play their way out of a bracket and into another bracket. And there are teams who need to win this last week just to not have to worry if they're going to get in or not. So let's look at some of the action that's on the slate. You've got games like Poly Arleta. You got games like Sylmar Panorama. Granada and Cleveland is an interesting one as we kind of wrap up the season. But I'll ask you, what game are you looking forward to the most on this slate of games in week 10 as we wrap up the regular season?
See, there's a bunch, but the one that really, really stands out for me because of the implications and the way these two teams have played, and to steal your favorite phrase, styles make fights, El Camino and Taft. Because the Royals have really put together a season where right now they're sitting very, very pretty in D1, and they could get a top seed if they pull out this win. And Taft is sitting kind of near the bottom of that bracket. But this is a game where they can now solidify themselves and move higher up and just kind of get going. That is the game for me that I'm watching the closest. Both of these two teams have something to fight for. Both of these teams, it's a league battle. They're located really close to each other also. So, this one might as well just be called that West, the corner of the West Valley matchup, because they're going to go hard. I think this is going to be a hell of a battle.
Oh, absolutely. Because I believe what they've decided to coin their rivalry now as now they're playing for a trophy. I think it's the 101 battle they call it.
Battle of the 101, right?
Yeah, the Battle of the 101. But yeah, it's always fun when you're talking about two programs in close proximity, two programs who are both looking at opportunities where they feel like they really are in a position to take the next step and really re-solidify themselves as, hey, we're a program you need to watch and look out for. And to your point, what's always interesting with two schools like this, with two charter schools that are in this sort of close proximity, it also becomes an opportunity to be like, hey, don't go there. Come here. You know what I mean? Like, hey, you want to have some fun? Why would you go there? Why, don't go to the blue school. Come over here. Come over here, put the gold helmet on. And vice versa. Like, hey, yeah, that gold helmet that's okay. It's passe. You want to come over here and play for these Royals. Look at us. Look at this blackout uni. Look how cool it is over here. Look at the stuff we do. So it's an opportunity to, like, even for that next generation of youth players who are kind of deciding. I know a couple kids who are kind of still up in the air right now about, oh, well, my parents told me I'm going to one of these two schools based on where I live, but I haven't decided yet. I think I want to play I think I'm going to go to whoever I think, because kids are fickle. I'm going to go to whoever looks like the better program. So there's a lot of stuff here on the line with these two teams in terms of a budding rivalry, especially if Taft truly is trying to establish that they are back. You know what I'm saying? Like, they've put in a lot of work in this program the last couple of years, and the fruits are coming to fruition. So I think this one is going to be intriguing. I think it has the potential to be like the closest game, one of the closer games on the slate. There's one other one that I do think is going to be really interesting, especially for postseason positioning and just the overall attitude of these two teams going in the postseason. And that's that Sylmar Panorama game in Week 10. That's a really, really interesting game going into Week 10, because these are two programs who know that they've got the talent to make something shake in the postseason. The Panorama just proved it to themselves. And Sylmar, kind of like, when you got a quarterback like Tim Tanner Jr., you know you're in the game. As long as you're not making silly mistakes, if that kid will keep you in the game, he might even win it for you if you can kind of keep the game under control. So it's going to be interesting to see how Panorama deals with another good quarterback off the heels of dealing with Carlos Herrera in Week 10 as they get ready for postseason. And also it'd be awesome to see if Sylmar can put a victory under their belt and maybe really give themselves a chance to maybe host a first round game when we get to postseason. So let's go, without further ado, let's go right into some game predictions, because there's some good games that have some outcomes that matter. Let's start with a couple of games in the East Valley. Poly on the road at Arleta Senior Day. Both teams have a lot to play for. Who are you taking in this one?
Last week I went against Poly. I went hard overhead, and this week I got to go ahead, and it's gonna be Arleta. Poly's scrappy. Poly's gonna fight. Poly's gonna grind. But that's what Arleta does day in, day out, and that's the only way they know how to play. So I think Arleta is gonna take it. I wouldn't be surprised if Poly makes it close, but I think Arleta is gonna take it.
Yeah, I'm not going to go too crazy with this one. I mean, I expect Arleta to win too. Like I said, this is a team. It's important to them, probably mentally, to finish the regular season with that one loss in the East Valley. And it was, quite frankly, a game that they probably, if circumstances were different, if they got to play that game again and from that same spot, if you could Thanos snap themselves back to the beginning of that fourth quarter, there's a couple of things they wish they could have back that probably would have had them ruin North Hollywood's homecoming. but alas, they didn't. But if that's the only loss in league in the second half of the season, they're going to feel really good about themselves going to the playoffs. I like George Flores as a quarterback at Poly. He's had a really good season. I think this is a tough ask when our leader is already showing that they're in playoff mode. Let's stay in the East Valley. Let's go over to Monroe. Monroe Senior Day. They're hosting Chavez. A few weeks ago, we might have felt a little different about this matchup, but this is an intriguing one too when we're talking about two teams that are jostling for playoff position. So Chavez and Monroe, who you got here?
I'm actually going to go with what I would like to see happen. And the only reason I do this is because these teams and the way they played this season has been, uplifting for different reasons in the way they've battled. Right, Chavez had a hard start and they got that big win streak. Monroe, senior laden, proving that, hey, you know what? We got all these seniors and we're going to find a way to battle and we're going to fight. And they were in a lot of these games. I'm going to say it's Monroe. And I picked Monroe because I want Monroe to eke their way into the playoffs. They're literally one spot out if the playoffs started today. So, and I think Chavez is safe. I don't think Chavez falls out with the loss. So, yeah, give me Monroe and let Monroe get in.
Yeah, I think I'll lean there too. I think these teams are very close. I think this will be a good game. But I think I'm also going to lean Monroe. I think those seniors will find a way to kind of get it done in that last home game. And just to ensure that the ride keeps going. Because that you're right. That's also a big motivator. For these seniors to know, like, hey, this could be the last time we put this uniform on if we don't go out there and get this game. So I'm leaning with that, and with that probably being in the back of everybody's minds, I expect a great effort, a full effort from Monroe on Friday night or Thursday night, whatever this game is. I think it's Thursday. I expect Monroe to win this game. So let's go over to the Valley Mission. There's one here we just kind of talked about a little bit. Sylmar and Panorama. Who you got?
This one, I mean, after the way they played this, last weekend, and the way, Sylmar has done things, this is a tough one for me. And they're both, right there in the rankings. They're both kind of, there's nothing really much to separate as they jostle out. I'm going to say this. Van Nuys showed what happens when an accurate and mobile quarterback is able to get loose against Panorama. And Tim Tanner Jr. is an accurate and mobile quarterback. So I'm going to take Sylmar.
Yeah, it's tough because I do like that comp. When you're talking about Tim Tanner, absolutely has the same sort of feel like a Carlos Herrera or Diego Montez in terms of the problems that they present for Panorama. But I'm going to lean Panorama just because it's, again, that senior day, senior night advantage. Emotionally, I think they can drag this game into the mud a little bit. I think Beltran saw exactly what we saw at the Coliseum with San Fernando, and is like, hey, listen, if we can take it to him, let's get some pressure. Let's see if we can get him to throw one up. Let's see if we can because Tim Tanner is one of those quarterbacks that believes, even with two people hanging off of him, that he can make a play, and that sometimes gets Sylmar in trouble. So I'll go Panorama in a close one, but I'll say this: if they were to win and Sylmar loses, this is starting to give the feel. The Sylmar team is starting to give the feel of a team that when they get to postseason will be like, lost a close one to Panorama, lost a close one to Van Nuys. We lost some close one. We lost a close one to San Fernando. Games that we absolutely should have won, and maybe they take those experiences and we see them go on a silly run in the postseason where they get to correct those mistakes. The way we saw teams like Panorama and Van Nuys do last year when they got postseason. So we'll it's going to be interesting to see how things play out beyond week 10. So a couple of quick ones to wrap up. Let's go Elko Taft. Battle a little one-on-one. Two schools in close proximity. This one should be fun with the styles making a fight here. Elko or Taft, who you got taking this one?
This one, I'm going to go El Camino because of what they've done this year throughout the whole season. I think, like we've been saying, this is the kind of the culmination point of everything. The way they've played, the way they've battled, the things they've done with, everyone they've faced. I think El Camino finds a way to overcome that offensive power of Taft because they can muck it up, and I think they will find a way to turn this into a grind, and then they'll let their offense run loose.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I don't think my opinion changes on either one of these teams based on the outcome. I think they're both in good position to do some things in the postseason, maybe get a win or two in the postseason. But Elko is something about the way they've figured themselves out in the second half. I'm right there with you. I think that this is a game that they know we win. It puts us in a good position in D1, and that might even put us in a position to host a couple if we can go on the road and finish strong. So I'm going to lean Elko there as well. And last but not least, Granada Hills at Cleveland. The reason why I put this one in as one that's intriguing to predict is because these are two teams that just based on recent weeks, I worry about each one, but for different reasons. I know it's been a long taxing season for Cleveland. The record is not indicative of what this team is, but it's just been tough this year. And Granada is a team that's been a little bit up and down. We know who they are, but they've been a little bit up and down. And also, I'm a little bit worried about, are they going to be able to kind of recalibrate and lock back in when you play this kind of team and play this kind of game against Granada, and mentally you probably are thinking like, hey, that's as close as anybody's played that team in the last couple of years. Oh, we ready. But you still got another game to play against a team that's knows they've got a lot to play for too. So, who are we taking in that one? We taking Granada or we taking Cleveland?
I'm just gonna address that notion real quick. I think because they lost, right? It changes the conversation.
Yeah.
If Granada had pulled out the victory, then you talk about coming down from that kind of emotional high and that emotional prep. When you fight that hard and you lose, what it does is it galvanizes you. I'm taking Granada over Cleveland. As much as Cleveland has had this hard season and they've battled, I think Granada's at a point where they're going to take everything they figured out and they're going to take it to Cleveland.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I just thought my only pause for concern was just emotionally. Can you get back there so quickly 1 week later when you put everything into that game plan to try to take that team down? I worry a little bit about emotionally, can they get it back there? I know for postseason they'll be fine. Was wondering if maybe emotionally is a little bit tough to ramp back up so quickly, but that's not the way this team is coached. This is a team that gets up at 6 a.m. They're very disciplined. They're very regimented with the way they do things. That's why that run game, even though people know exactly what the heck's coming every week, they can't stop it. Even Birmingham had a hard time stopping it this week. So, yeah, you're right. I think this is Granada putting a nice little cap and bow on the season and saying, all right, we're ready to go rip and run in the postseason. So that will wrap up this episode of ATV. Listen, man, it's been a fun season. There's still so much more to come. There's still some more to come this season. Make sure you guys go to valleysportstelegram.com and make sure you ingest all of this content that we are bringing you guys. We are working double, triple hard this time of year, making sure we're covering everything, making sure that you are in the know for everything that's coming. Archevere's got a flag football story coming this week. The Power List will return. They'll be there this week. Well, I'll give you the Valley Gems for this last week of games, this last regular season games that you need to be knowing and trying to get to if you can to support these kids. Because again, at the end of the day, this is why we do do it. Make sure you leave a like and a subscribe to the channel if you aren't already doing so. We put these things out, so if you're here listening to this, it's because you're interested and you want to know what's going on with our kids here in the San Fernando Valley. So, for Arshavir Sarian and your boy Kenny Hodges, this wraps up another episode of ATV. We'll see you guys soon. Peace.